Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Well, g'day everyone. It's Liam Garman, Managing Editor of Real Estate at Momentum Media, the team that brings you the Smart Property Investment Show. And I'm joined by someone who's going to be familiar to a lot of our listeners, Kane Dury. Dury. I always say Drury.
Yeah,
Dury.
there's only one R.
There's only one R.
D-U-R-Y.
Dury.
Yeah, no, it's common.
Dury. From Discover Buyers Agency and Discover Properties.
That's right. So we're here to talk about Discover Properties today.
We're here talking about Discover Properties. Usually it's your BA side. And, you know, you're multi-hatted. You're wearing many hats.
Yes.
In your role. Talk to me about Discover Properties.
So Discover Properties was started that, I guess, traditionally property management is an arm of a traditional real estate agency where they manage the property for the investor. And then at the end of that relationship, when the investor's ready to sell it, they pick up the sale and sell it. But we feel it can be done better. So we don't have sales and we don't look to sell it at the end. We just look to manage it better. And that's what our business model is. So we're property management for investors by investors that we've been investing across multiple states for the last 20 years as a family. And we just thought it was time to bring it into the business.
So now I've known you for a while now.
Yeah.
I've known you for a while. So out of army, you were a mortgage broker, and then you were doing the BA stuff. You know, the fact that you did property management was actually quite new to me. What was the sequence of it all?
It's been a while in the making, I guess, or a while in the consideration, but it made sense from the buyer and the manager for the client because we had that relationship. But we just see so many, property management's quite a tough gig, and we saw so many, I guess, unhappy landlords, and we just felt it would be done better with a few small changes to the model that would help improve the property investor specifically, someone looking to buy multiple properties in their portfolio where, you know, if we talk, so one key that we can get into, one key aspect of Discover Properties is the day the tenant pays their rent to the agency, less expenses we pay it and forward that on to the vendor. So then that money is sitting in their offset account from day one, not day 30 after sitting in the agency's trust account for 30 days. So that's a key, you know, and that might not be a huge difference when we're talking about one property. But if we've got 3, 4, 5 properties in our portfolio, that's a lot of rent that could be sitting in your offset account, improving the cash flow of your portfolio. So we thought that was vital to overcome. So we've obviously gone across the entire industry looking for a platform that can cater to those needs. So we're very focused on the investor that wants to build and scale their portfolio.
And it's one thing if you do have multiple properties in your portfolio, but it's also the time, right? You know, if you're talking about, say, several $100s after fees, after any expenses, any deductions, several $100 every 30 days, 12 months a year, over 30-year mortgage, you know, you could potentially be, even if you're reducing your interest by $10 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month, when you sum it up across 30 years, it's massive.
Yeah.
It is massive. And you're working in those 1%ers, right? So talk to me about why is it that Discover Properties does it the same day, but a lot of other property managers do it monthly?
Well, traditionally in property management, they'll pay it mid-month and end of month or just end of month. Whereas the platform that we're using, the landlord can claim the rent. They can have it weekly, fortnightly or monthly, or the same day the tenant pays it. Obviously, if they've asked us to pay their rates notice for them, and the rates notice might be sitting there at $1,200 and their weekly rent is $600, it'll hold the rent till it gets to enough to pay their outgoing for them. So there will be nothing for them to claim in that instance. But if the rates are all paid and everything's up to date, there's no maintenance, the tenant pays it, the management fees taken out, and then everything's paid forward to the landlord the same day.
Is it easier doing it this way than waiting for the 30 days and doing that kind of manual lodgement?
Very similar for the tenant. So they're just paying their rent.
There's
the way
paying
they
BSB
normally
and account number.
No change to them. From a business perspective, it is easier for us because it's a more modern technology from a property management platform. But then it's very similar to, or for the landlord, like they just set when they want their rent to be paid to them, and then it just lands in their account as it normally would. So it's just a little, just onboarding and setup of a different platform, very much the same that you would onboard to any other property management platform. But it's just available to them the same day the tenant pays it, which is a key feature for, that investor.
I find it quite interesting because a lot of investors, I would say, wouldn't necessarily look under the hood in terms of the mechanics of the property management side of things. I think most people know about trust accounts, but they don't necessarily know just how manual the process is and how manual the reconciling is. Because when I first started working in real estate, I assumed the technology that you were talking about was the standard, and I hazard a guess that these. I mean, we're in the world of PayPal, right? I would have thought that these automated payment platforms were the norm. Why do a lot of businesses in the property management world still stick with the really manual, laborious process?
You tell me, Liam.
Oh.
Yeah. I personally, for a business, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then when I'm an investor, as you know, and, I got into property investing 20 years ago as a young soldier. I just think this is a no-brainer. Like, why would you not want the money in your offset account, reducing the interest on your mortgage, rather than sitting in the agency's trust account? So I don't know, and I believe it is a very fast-growing platform in the industry, and I believe the more it gets out there, the more will be adopted. But yeah, I'm a big fan of it from a business and from an investor.
Did Discover Properties use it from day one?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
From
day one. It was one of the key features that we wanted to bring to our clients, because for me as an investor, that's what I would want my property manager using, especially if you're talking, like we said, like if it's one property and you're that accidental investor, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're talking 4, 5, 10 properties in your portfolio, that's a lot of money. And, hazard a guess of what the median rent in Australia is,
Is that a question?
Sure. Yeah. I don't have it.
Yeah,
I haven't got it off the top of my head. We could look it up.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
I'd say 600, 700 across Australia. Definitely in the capitals, it's going to be even higher.
Yeah.
If you've got $1,000 rent, in Brisbane, and you've got 5 properties around that mark, that's a lot of money every week sitting there in a trust account, not offsetting your mortgage.
Yeah, 5K a week, 20K a month.
Yeah. And a lot, I guess, the other side of the business is we don't do sales, so we're not looking to hold this relationship to just sell it for the sales commission at the end. It's a property management only.
So what inspired you to get into property management? You were already an investor?
Yep.
And you were like, I'm sick of the way things are getting done.
Yeah, just felt that it could be done better.
Yeah.
So
you almost did it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, just so I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it's almost a case where you were like, I've got these chumps. Am I allowed to say that? I've got these chumps looking after my investment properties. It's taking so long to get the money in my account. I'm paying more because I don't have the money in my offset account.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it myself better.
Just for the record, they were Liam's words, not mine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, were are your old property managers? Are they your friends?
Why not? I just feel that as an investor, it is your rent money as well. So it's just the pathway of the funds moving to your offset account faster. So, every investor I feel should be asking their agency, "Can I have my rent the day the tenant pays it, please?"
Yeah.
And why not?
Hurry up. Well, why not? It's my money.
Yeah.
Why not? So talk to me. So you obviously, and for those, I think most people would know, but Kane and I actually have another podcast together, the Defence Property Podcast. So go back, listen to it. If you have any friends, family that are in defence, send it through. Any veterans, send it to them, because Kane uses his expertise from Discover Buyers Agency to take people on this journey and tell them the sequence in which they can best invest regarding their time in defence and in service to make sure that they're able to grow a portfolio. You started growing your portfolio while you were still in defence.
Yep.
While you were still working. How did that work?
Yeah, so I was 22 read a property book and ran out. Went to a couple of seminars and just purchased my first property. No real idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I think a few of the audience may have heard my story. But yeah, and then just become a bit of a 24, purchase property number 2 and 3. And like many, when you join the defence, you don't really know what you're still a kid. You don't know what you want to do with yourself when you grow up. But when I purchased that third property, I was kind of like, this is what I want to do when I grow up. And it was something closer to that.
Was it the adrenaline?
But being a young soldier, I love my weekends as well. So I didn't want to be a sales agent or anything. So I went and did my mortgage broker qualifications. And years later, I continue while in defence, building the portfolio. I love how you say the mortgage broker qualifications, the mortgage broker quals. Broker quals, yeah. And started, so I was a broker for about 6 years before moving across to the buyer's agency. I guess the brokering space didn't give me that property conversation I enjoyed so much. Right. And, if I'm brutally honest, I don't think the redhead in me had the patience to deal with the banks on a daily basis.
Strawberry blonde.
Yeah. That's not what the kids in school said, but
well, you've got the last laugh, so don't you worry about that. Yeah.
And so then transition from mortgage broker to buyer's agent, and we're in that buyer's agency space that we just love now. We are a national buyer's agency that we purchase wherever market research and data suggests is good for growth. And then off the back of that is how Discover Properties was started.
Gotcha.
To buy the property and then help the investor manage it better. So at the moment,
it's the inverse of what you were describing before, right? Because you were saying that a lot of agents and a lot of networks would have these rent rolls to support the investor until they sell it, and then they're like, okay, cool, yummy, 2.5%, 3% commission. I'm going to help you sell it. You've done it the opposite, where you've helped a bunch of people buy good investments.
Yeah.
And then you've managed their good investments after you bought it for them. Now, I quite like that, because that is, it shows that you trust your product. And the reason I'm saying that is because I would say for a lot of people that don't trust the product that they're buying for their clients, they would never want to see them again.
That's right. You've got to back yourself.
You've got to back yourself. You've backed yourself to a point where you're like, I trust the product I've bought for my clients so much that I'm going to keep you around. So there's no escaping.
And everything we've done as me personally has always been focused around the buyer. And I've always loved just giving people that light bulb moment of investing in property and that's why I chose back when I transitioned from defence to being a mortgage broker, because it was helping people buy and get into the market and the debt strategy behind accessing equity to leverage into property number 2 and 3 and how to go about doing that. And that was, the transition from broker to buyer's agent was fairly natural when I wanted to get closer to real estate. So I guess.
So you thought being a mortgage broker was too far from the property discussion? You were too down the sequence. You were too far away.
You kind of spent all this time and you did all this work and you said, okay, you're pre-approved, off you go. But as we know and we discuss, like people like you and I discuss on a daily basis, like it's not that easy to go buy a good quality investment property. So I wanted to get closer to that conversation, I guess, before you give the pre-approval and say off you go.
Yep.
And I love the buyer's agency now, and Discover Properties was a very easy addition to it.
It's born out of it.
Yeah. So we're Southeast Queensland at the moment, focused with a big picture plans to potentially go down the path where you might have a property in Perth, Brisbane and Townsville. And then you've got one platform, one property manager or one point of contact with all your portfolio managed there, with your rent paid to you, that same day the tenant pays it. So it's sitting in your offset account. So that's the big picture. But at the moment, Southeast Queensland with regional Queensland or predominantly Townsville will be next, and then, other areas. We'll announce as we bring them on, I guess.
Australia-wide expansion.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially. We'll see where we go with it, yeah.
I can't put words in your mouth.
It's very hard. You don't want to jeopardise, like you were talking about, backing yourself and the quality of your product. And you don't want to jeopardise that by going too broad too soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common bit of feedback that a lot of people have with property managers is that to make property management profitable, and do correct me if I'm wrong, this is how it looks like from the outside, but to make property management profitable, the profitability is in the scale, because what you're charging a couple of % a week. So $50 a property, I don't know, per week. So if you've got someone full-time, if you've got a full-time employee looking after these properties, chasing up tenants, even fielding very reasonable questions of, hey, we need a tradie around because the sink's blocked or whatever, the profitability lies in the scalability of it. So yeah, do correct me if I'm wrong, but there is actually a business risk here for property managers if you scale too quickly,
Correct.
too fast. Yeah. And if you suddenly onboard 50, 60 properties without having someone there to look after it, well, then you can actually do damage.
Yeah, and that's why we'll minimise our onboarding as we do scale, and we won't scale into other regions until we're ready, and potentially see how we go with it. But yeah, we won't jeopardise the product to scale.
Yeah,
and that's very important for us.
Which I think is quite unique. What are some of your main selling points for Discover in the property management front that really set you apart from if you were to just go with the network?
Yeah, so relationships key, you know, so we're not doing it to sell it at the end like a lot of agencies, you know, they manage, because at any one point in time out of, you know, however big the rent roll is, 3 to 4% is looking to sell. So obviously the sales agency want to pick up those transactions, whereas we can advise our landlords, if they're going to become vendors, who to go to in the local market, because we'd have relationships there. So, and having that relationship with our vendor, our landlord that's looking to become a vendor, we can actually give quality advice because we're not a sales agency and we don't have sales agents. No, that's important. And then understanding investor pain points, and key is getting that rent to them in their offset account, improving the cash flow, because that's potentially going to help them build their portfolio.
And it would also, in terms of the immediate transaction of money, it mitigates the risk of trust account abuse.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it seems every day within our real estate portfolio here at Momentum Media, which includes smart property investment, but also real estate business, it seems probably once a week, once or every 2 weeks, you've got stories of people with their fingers in the till.
Yeah, I guess when we're heads down and bums up in the day-to-day business of, you know, buying and managing, we probably, like you're at the coalface, you know, talking to many different agencies and principals, you know, across Australia. So we probably don't hear it as much as you would.
I mean, let me tell you, they don't tell us.
Yeah.
If they don't tell us, it's usually the what is it? It's usually Fair Trading.
Right.
Yeah, Fair Trading has a portal where they put up all the dodgies, and they'll say what fine they cop.
Yeah, wow.
150K fine for having your fingers in the till for that trust account where your rent money goes.
And that's the beauty of technology when it's all automated, that it can't be abused.
Yeah, 100%. For our investors that are listening and they might feel a little bit in safer hands, but having their property looked after someone who's in the same boat as them, Kane, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, just jump on to discoverproperties.com.au, fill out the form. That'll come through to us and we'll reach out, or just text PM or property management to 0475 060 945 and we'll reach out. At the moment, we're only onboarding Southeast Queensland and Townsville and potentially Perth in the near future.
So watch this space and
watch
reach
this space
out if you're in those areas. Mate, I think that's all we have time for today. Thanks so much for joining us on the SPI show.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And a shameless plug for Kane and my show, because actually Kane's a guest on this show, on this SPI show, but we do have our own show together, which is the Defence Property Podcast. If you want to listen to me and Kane riff it and talk about all cool things in the world of defence and property, which sometimes people don't always mix together, do they?
No, that's right.
No, they don't. But
and if you're in the Geelong area, come and see us in the last week of March at Avalon Air Show.
Avalon Air Show. Jill should have done an Avalon plug.
Yeah.
We'll be there. Kane and I will be there. Do reach out if you want to chat further. But that is all we have time for today. And we'll be back at the same time next week with another SPI podcast. But until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.